True Talk, brought to you by Truland Equipment. Join us as we explore cutting-edge machinery, groundbreaking technology, and inspirational stories from the field.
From the dedicated efforts of our team members to the triumphs and challenges of our farmers, True Talk brings you along every step of the way.
Whether you're a seasoned agriculturalist or simply curious about the industry, tune in to discover the fascinating intersection of technology, agriculture, and green machines.
True Talk, cultivating true conversations.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of True Talk. I am Courtney, and here I have with me Jordan and Josh, and we also have a guest speaker with us.
A special guest.
Yes, a special guest. Karie, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Karie Taylor. I'm the dealership experience intern here at Truland for the summer, which basically means I'm going to be going through every department and exploring everything Truland has to offer. I'm going into my junior year at Purdue University studying ag econ. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for, this fun ride we're going to go on for this podcast. So,
okay, so I said I was going to quiz you before we started the podcast. So here's my pop quiz. What department are you most excited to learn about? It can be integrated solutions, since we're all integrated solutions in this room. And
I probably would have said integrated solutions.
Yeah, you're not allowed to.
That's okay. I guess one that I'm pretty excited about is marketing, which I'm starting this week. So I guess that's always kind of been a slight interest of mine, and just seeing how ag companies do marketing is something that I've been looking forward to learn about. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure marketing is excited to have you, and as are we. So today we're going to do kind of a reverse episode. In the past, you've seen myself, Courtney, and Josh ask questions to our guests, but today, as our intern, Karie gets the special pleasure of asking us questions and quizzing us. So Karie, take it away.
Okay, yeah, so today we're going to cover a few topics, and I guess the first one I really want to talk to you guys about is implement guidance. So I guess just from the start, tell me what it is, and yeah.
Yeah, so what I did not mention previously is that our overall theme is going to be our advanced features or our automation features. Depending on what display you're utilizing, you'll see those mentioned differently. For the G5s, which is what we'll be focused on today, as there are some differences, we will be referring to those as the advanced features and the advanced licensing on our G5 displays. So as Karie mentioned, the first topic of conversation is implement guidance, which is a personal favorite. So we're excited to talk about that.
Yeah, so can you explain to me, I guess, what that is in general terms?
Yeah, implement guidance is kind of like it sounds. It's basically where typically we talk about guidance, we talk about allowing the tractor or the combine or the sprayer to define where it's going to drive, the path of guidance. Whereas implement guidance, the implement itself determines where that machine is going to drive so that the implement can stay on a particular guidance line. Jordan, is that a good explanation or not?
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty all-encompassing definition. One of the key things to note is just honing in on the fact that there is implement guidance that we've seen for years with steerable hitches, steerable
Right.
implements.
Active implement guidance.
Yes.
Yep.
And this gets a little confusing because this one is called AutoTrac implement guidance, whereas the other one is active implement guidance.
So another word for AutoTrac implement guidance would be passive is another way that we would describe that. So you're right, Jordan. Active means that the tractor and the stays on its line, and there might be a steerable hitch to keep that implement lined up as well. Whereas passive implement guidance, the implement stays on its guidance line, and it literally tells the tractor where to go to keep that implement on its guidance line. So it might have the tractor steering left and steering right, whatever it has to do to keep that implement where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably the reason that we see implement guidance, AutoTrac implement guidance, as such a popular option in planting, is because you're passing over bare soil. You have the option to drive your tractor tires. Your row crop tractors are not going to damage a standing crop as you're planting that crop right behind you. So you're not compacting it when driving over it. You're not knocking down rows, using it in standing crop. Typically, we see that as a planter feature.
And another thing with implement guidance is it helps basically reduce that guess row, where it's not as much of a guess row as it is an actual standard row width. And with implements, we all know that they can float a little bit, they can have a little movement on the hitch. So the idea with AutoTrac implement guidance or passive implement guidance is that takes that hitch float out of the equation and makes sure that implement stays in a single path the whole time.
All right. So I guess another question I have about implement guidance would be, what are the kind of requirements you're going to need on your tractor or to use this kind of feature?
Yeah, so the whole reason that this all works together is, simply put, you need another receiver on your planter, on your implement. There's a few more requirements. Obviously, that advanced license or automation 4.0 on a Gen 4, so you're going to need a Gen 4 or a G5 screen. That's unavoidable. And then once you start to get into some of the beyond the software requirements, you also start looking into, you need harnessing as you need to communicate with your receiver on the back of your planter. And typically I say that we recommend that receiver go as close to your seed as you can. So as your seed is being placed, you want that receiver to be ideally as close to that as you can be.
Yeah.
Right, you mentioned the cabling. So it's there's a few different things you got to get as far as cabling goes, harnesses go. You talked about the software side. Obviously, you got to get in and enter some offsets for that receiver based on where it sits on the implement. Got to turn implement guidance on. That's a big one.
You do
right?
have to do that.
Right.
Yes, that is a requirement.
Right, and then it's going to require some signal sharing. We always tell people that you want your strongest receiver on your tractor. Even though the implement is doing the guidance, you still want your strongest receiver on the tractor, and then you turn on signal sharing or enable signal sharing, which allows that tractor receiver to share its strong signal with the implement receiver.
I guess moving on into the next topic, I would really like to hit on AutoPath. What can you give me a rundown on what AutoPath is?
So, okay, talking about AutoPath, it's like there's two different versions. Let me start with there. So we have AutoPath rows, and we now have the new AutoPath boundaries. So going into Op Center and being able to create AutoPath lines from those boundaries is new with our new software this year of
24.1.
Yeah, 24.1. So that's new, and that's new with that. So everyone's probably more used to using AutoPath rows, which was always used with your implement guidance, which is from planting. So being able to take those mapped rows and putting them into Op Center and then regenerating a file to send them back to your piece of equipment, whether it's a sprayer or a combine, it's going to generate those lines to specifically match that piece of equipment, so that way you're not smashing crops or as many as what you would have if you were just regular hand driving down a pass. So that's what I have for that.
And AutoPath and implement guidance are tied into each other, right? It's a good thing we started with implement guidance, because that's usually the first step in setting up AutoPath, is having that receiver on that implement, whether it's a strip till bar or a planter. And again, the key with what Courtney says when we talk about AutoPath rows, which has been around for a couple years, is the one that we all started with. AutoPath rows maps the rows. Okay, so we're not mapping passes, we're actually mapping rows. And those mapped rows will be utilized throughout the rest of the season for other in-crop passes, whether it be spraying and side dressing, harvest, and what have you.
Okay, and how do you guys think AutoPath will change the way farmers operate in the future?
Oh, I think it's pivotal. I honestly think that this is kind of going to be, we used to have AutoTrac, that was a big thing. It was, we told the story, Andy told the story in the demo episode, and it was, who really thinks that they need that? I already know how to drive my tractor. I don't need to sit back and have my machine do it for me. People are used to setting their guidance lines. People are used to having different ones for all their different pieces of machinery. People are used to doing the calculations on that universal pass and how your different widths of machinery and how that translates. Are you going to run over rows? Are you going to have a row of shame left over because of how you planted? All of those factors. And with AutoPath, it really eliminates a lot of that thought process. There's huge benefits to it, and you're talking benefits that come from implement guidance starting out in the spring. Then you get to utilize those paths that you made with AutoPath for rows as early as side dress season. Then you go into spraying, and then followed by harvest. Things as simple as if you're splitting a field, opening a field up in the dark, there's no more counting rows. There's no more trying to guess and ending up with a half width pass to finish the field off in the middle of the night and being frustrated at yourself from a few hours ago. It's completely done with.
Absolutely, and it increases efficiency in several ways, right? Number one is it automatically, when you set up your implement guidance in your AutoPath with your source operation, which would be like planting or strip till, it automatically gives you your guidance lines for your subsequent or field passes after that. And so you don't have to sit there and punch in A/B lines. It literally lines up all your guidance lines for you. So it's quicker in the field. You talk about crop damage. It should virtually almost eliminate crop damage because it's got the equal spacing in the guess row. Row of shame, you talked about the row of shame. The efficiency that you shouldn't have extra passes in the field, right? Because your guidance lines are already calculated based on your previous source passes. So there's a lot of efficiencies and crop safety measure to it as well.
As long as your measurements are correct with all your equipment, it will work properly.
And side dressing especially. You're going to talk about a lot of people that side dress. I know they don't have section control and row shut off on their toolbars. And so with that, you're also talking about optimizing those passes across the field so you're not burning standing crop.
Right.
It's simple little things that just over the crop season add up to this one big picture that is yield, and how do we maximize that? And this is really the first step. And aside from agronomics, this is how we can maximize some of that with our equipment and get an ROI and really see the payoff of some of these automation features. And I think that AutoPath is just the first step in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like the kind of feature that's going to pay off. So I guess how does AutoPath integrate with like John Deere's technology and the Ops Center and that kind of thing?
Well, the big thing is that you have to utilize the Ops Center to be able to utilize AutoPath. That is a huge requirement, and that's something that gets left out a lot. But you actually, just as we talked about, you have to turn on your implement guidance. You do have to turn on AutoPath, not only in your display, but actually in your operations center as well. So there's a feature in there, feature enablement tool in your organization setup, and you go in and toggle that switch. Super simple. I've walked many people through it over the phone. Easy to do. Just get on your computer, toggle that switch. But yeah, and then another thing with AutoPath is that in addition to having that on, we also have to use our Ops Center as a translator, so to speak, for those guidance lines that are being passed. So AutoPath, overall big picture, what we're talking about is you are generating a row by row map. So essentially you're mapping where every single corn plant is in that field, or every single standing plant, by mapping every individual row based on those accurate measurements. Your implement receiver, all of those factors play in. And to be able to translate that and create that optimal universal pass for all of your different equipment widths, it really starts with translating it through the Ops Center. So you actually can't transfer guidance lines, AutoPath guidance lines, from receiver or from display to display. You actually have to go from display to your Ops Center account and then back to your other display, your next display.
Okay.
A very long-winded answer for it's huge, and you have to utilize your Ops Center.
Long story short, Ops Center is a critical part of a lot of automation.
And you're going to start to see that increase more and more. Ops Center is really...
it's a hub.
Yeah.
The information hub.
Well, it's really refining all of their... there's so many more capabilities, even in the past year, that have come about in Ops Center. You're going to start to see that become utilized more and more. We were just talking about some autonomy features and how the integration with those truly autonomous tractors, how that integration with Op Center might work. And you're gonna start to see a requirement for Op Center. So if you don't have an Op Center account, reach out to us. We would love to set you up with one. They're free, so it's easy. All it takes is an email, but the payoff for having an account is great.
So speaking of data, the next topic I want to hit on is your in-field data sharing feature. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in-field data sharing is kind of like it sounds, where you have two machines in the same field that are doing the same thing, whether it be two combines that are harvesting the same crop. Maybe you have two tractors in the field that are both putting on anhydrous ammonia. Maybe you have two fertilizer spreaders that are both out there spreading fertilizer or spreading lime. And as long as those two machines are doing the same thing in the same crop in the same field, which would make them part of the same work group, they can share things like coverage maps. They can share guidance lines. You can see the other combine's yield map if you're talking about combines. It's literally in-field data sharing. It's a great tool. It's a tool that's really, really utilized heavily by our ASPs, our ag service providers. Maybe if they're spreading lime and have two lime trucks in the same field, they want to know where the other truck has been and see the other truck's passes. And it's a great tool that, again, as long as you have two machines doing the same thing with the same product, the same client farm field, and they're in the same work group, that's when in-field data sharing can happen.
Another cool feature about in-field data sharing, I personally think, is that if, say that I'm out spreading lime, as Josh mentioned, and I get rained out, that data is stored, and then if Josh comes back in after it's dried up, as long as he is in the same work group as I am, he actually will be able to start over and see that existing coverage map.
With a different truck.
With a different piece of equipment, correct. So even if you get rained out and it's a couple days in between, you can still see that coverage. So there's no more, I was about 20 yards away from the tree with the crook in it. It'll tell you exactly what that next guidance line is that you need to pull onto, where your next AB line is, and take it from there. And just the precision of the in-field data sharing and the capabilities with that. Now, one thing I do want to mention about the in-field data sharing is that with the release of the G5s, you do see that move from a premium 3.0 feature to an advanced feature. So it used to be included in the same bundle as section control and row sense, which was part of our premium 3.0 for those 4640 users. Now with the release of the G5, it is an advanced feature. So I do like to call that out. No change in how it operates, no change in any of that, but it is now part of that software.
You guys kind of hit on this a little bit, but I guess what kind of issues do you see this feature solving for farmers? Like, what issues are they not running into when they have this feature?
And like Jordan said, if someone has to leave the field, a lot of people get frustrated when they leave a field and maybe have lost their coverage map or are unable to share that coverage map to another machine that wants to come in and finish that field. So that was a great example. I've had ASP fertilizer dealerships talk about how they utilize it to keep track of how many loads they have to come to the field when they're able to have two machines in one field. They're able to share coverage and acres and the amount of work that they've done with each other. It's much easier to figure out how much more fertilizer they have to order to finish the field. There's a lot of little things like that. For what I would consider a pretty simple feature, it's actually got a lot of value to it.
Yeah, I would agree. Courtney, would you agree?
Yeah.
And if you guys had to pick like the ideal candidate for this, like who would you definitely recommend this feature to? What comes to mind?
For the ASPs, for sure, 100%. They're probably the top user of this feature. Anybody with two combines, I think, is a pretty good candidate, especially if they're going to be in the same field. And then, again, people that might put on their anhydrous ammonia or have two anhydrous ammonia rigs or two side dress rigs. Anybody that's got two of any particular setup like that, that's going to be in the same field.
The duplicate equipment. I've even seen people use this in tillage at
Absolutely.
night.
Great tillage.
You get too far away from each other or down in a low spot and you can't see headlights. Zoom out and see how much they have done if they're still moving. There's all sorts of uses for it, and I would say anybody who is really having is using duplicate machines is an ideal candidate. And as Josh mentioned, super simple, really not even a learning curve to it, I would say. It's just across the board. You're pretty much set up for it. If you're documenting properly, as you should be, really, you're already probably set up for it. You're primed to go. You might as well get the benefit from in-field data sharing.
All right, I guess moving on into machine sync. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what the benefits of machine sync is and what it is?
Sure. Machine sync is a feature that's used at harvest, and this is actually where the combine driver can actually control the auger cart. So what happens is as long as the combine and the auger cart both have at least a Gen 4 or a Gen 5 display, and they have the most up-to-date software, and they've enabled these features, and they are part of the same work group, similar to in-field data sharing. That means you have to have the same client, farm, and field. Once that happens, they show up on each other's screen, and that combine driver is actually able to control that auger cart when he's dumping on the go. Can move it from side to side and back and forth, and actually use it to maximize filling of the auger cart.
And although not very common, it can be done in the reverse. So the grain cart can actually maneuver themselves if they fit into that category.
This sounds like pretty advanced technology to me. Is there a learning curve to using this, and what can a farmer kind of expect?
Oh yeah, I would say there's a pretty big learning curve with it. Not that it's complicated to use by any means, but it's a totally new thought process to be able to control where the grain cart is versus having to communicate that. I mean, before having radios, two-way communication between the combine driver and the tractor driver, trying to communicate where they needed to be, how fast they needed to go. Obviously, our really experienced machine operators could kind of place that, but you do have the one-off where, you know, somebody really wants to fill the front of that, and you're just not there, and you can't really tell that sitting in the tractor, but the combine driver can. Things like that. I mean, there's a little bit of a learning curve in terms of fine-tuning your nudges, and you can set different zones. And then for the tractor drivers as well, you do need to come in at a certain speed to be able to lock on to that home point, is what we call it. And that's essentially a moving target, a moving AB point, kind of, instead of a AB line. It's kind of a point that you lock onto and move alongside the combine. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. Again, nothing that is not learnable. I would say if you're committed to it, using it on every load or every on the move unload, I would say it takes a couple hours at best to really become perfect and dialed in and feel 100% comfortable letting that tractor take over for your driving, essentially.
Does TrueLand offer any kind of support for this learning curve?
Yeah, that's kind of our job security.
That's what we do.
Yeah. I think that setting up machine sync is super fun. We typically have two people go out, and one hops in the combine and one hops in the grain cart, and away we go. And we show them what buttons to hit and which ones not to, and kind of help them set up what works for their operation. Again, do they want the combine to be in control? Do they want the tractor to be in control? Where do we want to set that home point? Some people start in the middle and work their way to the front and back. Some people like to start in the back, work their way up. People harvest at all different speeds. How do we change that speed with varying conditions? All those things we walk you through right there in the field. So just give us a call if you want to utilize machine sync when you get started.
Jordan, you kind of hit on this a little bit, but are there other benefits that come to mind for this feature?
Absolutely, and Jordan did hit on a little bit. Want to kind of expand on what she said. So we typically tell people maybe they don't have the most experienced employee in the auger cart. So machine sync allows you to put maybe a less experienced driver in that cart when the combine driver can control that auger cart. It allows you, again, to have maybe someone that's maybe not quite as experienced. There's also a major efficiency component. Typically, when guys were filling their auger carts, they would slow the combine down and speed the combine up to try to hit different points in that auger wagon to fill it up. And now that combine can stay at a consistent speed, And when that combine operator is controlling that auger cart, they can move it side to side and back and forth without having to slow that combine down. And they're also able to fill that combine or fill that auger cart completely full by just maneuvering that cart left and right and front and back. So there's a definite efficiency component to that as well.
So some of the requirements that go in with the machine sync is having an R modem. Some of you guys might have either don't have any modems in your combines or need to update your modems. If you're just updating, obviously we probably will just get you an R modem because it's just an easy transfer over. If you're looking to put a modem in your combine, some are looking at M modems. But if you're looking into doing machine sync, you will want to do an R modem, but you will have to look in to make sure that it is compatible with your combine, just because some machinery isn't compatible with certain pieces of equipment and machinery and modems like that.
Yeah, and a key thing that Courtney kind of touched on, we do want to have modems in our combines. We also want to have them in every tractor. So the way that machine sync works, the synchronous part of that is communicating via a Wi-Fi network that is created between the two machines to geo-reference each other and communicate back and forth. So to do that, we also need the same R modem or a 4G MTG in your tractor as well. And again, each of those come with their own compatibility. So make sure that you either look into that or talk to us. We'd be more than happy to help you. But yeah, a MTG or modem is required in both machines.
Right, and it's also going to be important that machine softwares, display softwares, machine softwares are up to date, and also that the tractor is going to need to have the tractor implement automation as well.
Yeah, tractor implement automation is a good point. And that is a free feature. It doesn't cost anything, but if you are getting any sorts of errors, just remember that you listen to this podcast in the middle of summer.
Sometimes that gets forgotten, right? The TIA.
Yeah, yep, it does. It's just a activation that your dealer needs to put on. Super simple to do, just a code that you have to punch in. It's free to access, free to utilize, and sometimes it just gets missed, as Josh said.
It's a good habit to get into putting those in for almost all the automation features.
Correct. You're going to see that. I mean, it's even a requirement for easy fold on your planner. So everything's going to start to require that. If for whatever reason you do have a tractor that's missing it, though, super simple to get put in. So
I guess speaking of automation, the last advanced feature I want to hit on today is turn automation. So can you guys tell me a little bit more about what that is and what that encompasses?
Josh, you want to take that one?
I don't know. That's your baby, Jordan. It's always been your baby.
So somehow I have pigeonholed myself into the ATTA expert. Okay, it's all because I made a video on our YouTube channel that everybody now thinks that I'm the expert. So Josh included, apparently.
Yeah, please check out our YouTube page, by the way. The True Land Equipment YouTube page. So
shameless plug there. Yeah, no, we did put a lot of energy and effort into making a turn automation video. That was actually a fun experience. It was a bonding experience for sure. So we actually got to learn how to run turn automation all together as a IS team. So yeah, what a great experience we had, right, Josh?
yeah, and it's one of those titles that's exactly like it sounds: AutoTrac Turn Automation.
Yeah, so you utilize AutoTrac and it automates your turns. There is a little bit more that goes into it than that. However, for anybody who has used the iTech, I personally have never used the iTech feature, the iTech Pro turn automation, but I have been warned that it is nothing like that, and that the old program was a beast to set up and took forever, and nobody used it because it was a pain. So I guess Deere heard that, and they created turn automation, which is a very simple, 11, 12 step setup.
Simplified version.
Yeah. And 4 or 5 of those are selecting your client farm field and the guidance line, which you already are doing anyways, because you can't use turn automation without using AutoTrac. So it's things like that you're already doing.
Equipment offsets, measurements, so things that you should have already done anyway. At least half the list is things that you should already be doing anyway, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And so it's super simple. From there, you enter an entering the headland sequence and an exiting headland sequence, and how you want to control your implement. Now, I will say that is for planting and tillaging. Tillage? Tillaging. That's not a word. But harvesting, you also have the option to run turn automation. I would say it's unknown, at least I don't know, for 2024, harvest 24, if we're going to have that feature that has head control as well, so your header control, so being able to raise that on your turns. For now, that does not exist. As of when we are recording this podcast, does not exist, but I have heard rumors that it's coming, so unsure of exactly when that's coming, but it will be here. So yeah, automating the turns through a super simple setup process. The one thing I do want to call out is, in that shameless plug for our YouTube video, we do highlight how to do accurate measurements, especially when it comes to the timing of your SCV control. So raising and lowering your implement tends to be different for not only your implement, but your raise time is different than your lower time. It's just is. So we want to actually have people record that time and be able to calculate their SCV control for those turn sequences.
Right, and there's not really a place to enter your raise and lower time, but that factors into how long it takes for your implement to raise while you're traveling, right? Because you're covering ground as your implement's raising. So those are just things that help you kind of calculate, when you want to start your turns and when you want to drop your implement back down and what have you. So there's just those are some tips and things that are going to help people get this ATTA tuned in a little bit better.
And one of the nice things about ATTA is they continue to make it, I would say, more universally available. So with our 23.3 update, software update, we saw the elimination for speed control, which was a big thing for the inclusion of more tractors to be able to utilize turn automation. So no longer does your machine have to have the ability to have speed control, but also it eliminates one setup step.
Sure.
So now you have the option to run it if your tractor is enabled, but not a requirement anymore. So
and that would be maybe some older tractors, some 30 series tractors with some different transmissions that in the past weren't able to do ATTA.
And now they are.
I guess after covering those 5 advanced features, what kind of benefits are farmers overall, if they're using these features, gonna see at harvest time?
Again, I'm going to go back to that efficiency thing, and ATTA is a prime example. The idea is to make things work more efficiently. When you're talking about machine sync, again, we don't have to slow that combine down. Talking about ATTA, the idea is to set up the perfect turn that the tractor can do that turn better than a human can, right? So it increases our efficiency in time that it takes us to make turns. Allows us, again, to ATTA and machine sync are synonymous for allowing us to use maybe less experienced operators, right? Because we can automate so many things that we don't have to have that perfect operator in the seat. So again, this is automation. This is stuff that's leading us towards autonomy. So the idea is to make things consistent, simple, and more efficient.
Yeah, going off of that, it's just making it easier for the farmer in general. Like, he can focus on other things. Like when you're turning, he can make sure that his tillage tool or planter is picking up and starting where it needs to, doing like timing wise. And with like machine sync, if he can't find anyone who knows how to do grain cart, he can easily be in control kind of with that as well. So overall, it's just making things a little bit easier and making them like less fatigue as the season goes on.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things is just error reduction and repeatability. The repeatability is something that we're going to see increase. The accuracy of things like AutoPath and placing our seed exactly where it needs to be and mapping that seed placement, and just the accuracy that comes with that. Of course, now we're seeing SFRTK come into the picture, and the accuracy of that increasing as well. Grand scheme, it just goes into this overall bigger picture of automation and the accuracy that can provide for farmers, and the repeatability for not only pass to pass, but operation to operation and then year to year. So I think that there's just overall, you can narrow it down to each little feature like we did in this podcast, but I think that overall you're just going to see a lot more of this big, scary, what people have considered scary automation term become a lot more realistic, and people actually see little by little the value that it can have on their farm and on their operation.
And I guess my final question for you guys is, in you guys' opinion, if you had to choose one of these as the most beneficial, like if you had your farm and you were going to use one of these features, which one would you choose?
Good question.
Well, I'll go first. I would have to say probably AutoPath, just because you're using it year round. It's not like machine sync that you're only going to use like during harvest time, or implement guidance when you're just using it when you're either doing tillage or planting. AutoPath, you're using it year round. You can use it for spraying, side dressing, harvesting, all that. So that's just kind of, I guess, I'm going to want the bigger bang for my buck of what I'm paying for. So the more I use it, the more I'll get out of it.
I'm going to go with AutoPath too. And AutoPath builds off of implement guidance, but for me, AutoPath, I like the fact that you can have mismatched equipment. Maybe your side dresser's a different size than your planter. Your sprayer's likely going to have a boom that may or may not match up with your planter. Harvesting for sure. If someone has a 12-row planter but an 8-row head, it allows us to have those mismatched equipment. And I remember a couple years ago when AutoPath came out, they had those derecho storms out in Iowa, and a lot of the crop was down, and certain customers were demoing AutoPath for the first time out there, and they said it was a lifesaver because they couldn't see where the rows were because the crops were all flat, and they said it was a lifesaver for them. So I'm with Courtney. I would go AutoPath.
Okay, so for being an ATTA turn automation expert, or as Josh said, that's my baby. I'm going to be different than the other two. I'm going to go with implement guidance. I think that if you are not running implement guidance, that factors in your higher correction signal. So without the use of implement guidance, I really think that is setting your AutoPath. It's not setting a good foundation for your AutoPath. So I definitely see the benefit in throwing a harness and a spare receiver that you probably have sitting around on your planter and utilizing that, because I really honestly think of implement guidance as a foundation for all of your AutoPath. If you have a guest row that's super wide or super narrow, what's that going to do to your AutoPath files? And how is that going to translate to the rest of the season? I mean, we hone in on it time and time again, year after year, planting season after planting season. Be extra cautious of how you plant when you are creating an AutoPath source operation, because you can't go back and redo it. You get one shot to put seed in the ground. You get one shot to make an AutoPath file. And so I think that implement guidance is just that extra safety net of how are we going to create the best and most accurate files and guidance lines that we can use for the rest of the season. Plus, I kind of think it's fun to put on a receiver. So I'm going with implement guidance.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for letting me pick your brains on these features. It was really cool to turn the tables around and hear you guys' ideas on these.
Do you think that you learned something?
For sure.
You're a good sport, Karie. We put you on the spot today, and you did fantastic.
Can we make you take a quiz over this?
Maybe.
So let me ask you something. If you had a farm, what feature do you think would be most important to you after hearing what you've heard today?
I kind of liked Jordan's take on the implement guidance. While you both said that AutoPath is the most important feature, but if implement guidance is setting up my most important feature, I think I'd want to take implement guidance as my number one, AutoPath number two.
That's a good answer.
Hot takes for the win today.
Can't get the cart before the horse.
Yeah, it's good to be different. You'll learn that. Well, Karie, we're so appreciative, and I'm sure that we'll see you. I don't know, did you have fun?
Yeah, I think I had a good time.
You had a good time? Okay, well, I'm sure that we will happily have you back on some more episodes over the course of your internship. So everybody out there, stay tuned for not only Karie as a guest on future episodes, but also look for some of her marketing materials that she might be putting out. So
great job today.
Yeah, thanks again. And if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to be notified when we put out our new episodes. Until next time.
We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.